people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. In a rather unexpected turn of events and more mercy than I would have expected from him, 50 Cent, who's been going back and forth with both Papoose and his girlfriend Claressa, took to his social media and said, "Okay, the truth is I'm a Shields fan. I think she is an amazing fighter, and she's got a big fight coming up, so I'm gonna chill and let her focus. Let's go, champ." If he wanted to keep going, he could have, because usually that's how he is. And even if he's laying off of Claressa, at least momentarily, long enough for her to have that fight with Franchon, who's to say that things between them don't heat up again? They still might, because even if 50 wants to momentarily bury the hatchets, Claressa Shields has a penchant for revisiting old beefs, rehatching them. A big part of the reason the Layla Ali conversation stayed a conversation so long is because Claressa kept bringing it up. That went on for something like 5 or 6 years, and it's because she kept it alive by continuously bringing it up. So things between 50 and Claressa may have calmed down right now, momentarily, but they could always pick back up where they left off after the fight. And even if 50 Cent is giving her this momentary reprieve, there are others who are just as critical. And they're not. UFC champion turned boxer Chris Cyborg took to her social media and said, "How does this girl have 19 world titles and only 17 pro fights? Chuck E. Cheese prizes. Claressa out here collecting vacant belts in weight classes without contenders. Last year, she was at the Super Bowl telling me to fight her at 154. I told her I needed more boxing experience, and now that I've got it, she's quiet as a mouse. I call your bluff at junior middle, 10-ounce gloves, no rehydration clause. Let's make the fight before October." It's not gonna happen. We know that the women fluctuate in weight a lot more than the men do, so it's possible that Claressa could still boil down to 154, a weight that she hasn't made since March of 2021, roughly 5 years ago. Believe it or not, I think she can still get down there, so much as she doesn't want to. She's at a comfortable weight for her that doesn't require her to go into a fat camp. When you look at Claressa Shields' physique, her build, a lot of that is just fat and water, not solid muscle that she's put on. I think with some effort, she could probably boil back down to 154. She's not too old to do it. But I get the distinct impression that she doesn't want to, that it's more effort than she's willing to put out for what girls are down there. Which is unfortunate, because the names actually get bigger and better the lower you go, whereas Claressa, she's all the way up there in that barren weight class. Nobody in it. Chris Cyborg's commentary on Claressa Shields' Chuck E. Cheese belts, many of which were vacant at the time that she fought for them. That's why her winning all those belts and carrying them around doesn't elicit the same esteem, respect. She doesn't get the same respect as some other unified or undisputed champion, because with an Usyk, for example, you know he had to go through Anthony Joshua for some of his belts, Tyson Fury, subsequently Daniel Dubois. They were not easy to put together, easy to collect. It's not just the act of collecting all those alphabet titles, but what you had to go through, who you had to go through to get them. Whereas Claressa, while she did win the WBC title from Canada's own Vanessa Joannese, the other 3 titles were vacant. That's how it is most of the time with her. The alphabet organizations basically throw their trinkets into the mix, because most of the time, there's nobody up there to hold them. There was not a WBA, WBO, or IBF heavyweight champion that Claressa Shields had to go through to become one herself. And to become undisputed. Thus, becoming undisputed in that fashion, it doesn't elicit a whole lot of esteem. No. A whole heap of respect. Not really. Chris Cyborg wants her to come down to junior middle, have a fight down there. I think Chris is barking up the wrong tree. I don't think Claressa's gonna do it. So maybe Chris Cyborg should see about fighting Michaela Mayer?
Ooh, that might be good.
Michaela was last in action in the junior middleweight division opposite the ring then champion Mary Spencer. Maybe Michaela can defend her belt against Chris. She's right there, and she's not otherwise preoccupied. But as far as Claressa, while I think she can, with some effort, get back down to 154, I don't think she wants to. I think she's very comfortable where she's fighting right now, and she's telling herself, I'm the big cheese, I've got all the belts, these girls should have to come up to fight me.
Why should I have to move down to fight them? Effectively cutting herself off from the rest of the talent pool and alienating herself from what could be big fights.
Why do you think she's fighting Franchon again? I've got nothing against Franchon, but nobody was asking these two to run it back. They already fought.
There's little to no chatter around the fight between them, the rematch. So she can just keep doing what she's doing because she's comfortable, but it's not really moving the needle.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, revisiting last week's horrific accident involving Anthony Joshua, the driver of the car and fatal crash that injured British boxer charged by police in Nigeria. The driver of the car involved in a fatal crash that injured Anthony Joshua and killed two of his close friends has been charged by Nigerian police with causing death by dangerous driving and driving without a license. Joshua suffered minor injuries in the crash on December 29th that killed Sinagami and Latif Ayodele, who were also members of the British boxers' training team. The Lexus SUV the men were traveling in collided with a stationary truck on the Lagos-Abadan Expressway in Ogun State. The Ogun State Police Command confirmed that Adeniyi Coyote, 46, had been charged in court earlier on Friday, with the case adjourned until January 20th for trial. Joshua, 36, was taken to the hospital where medical staff determined that he did not require any emergency interventions and was discharged last Wednesday. Coyote was charged on 4 counts, where dangerous driving, causing death, reckless and negligent driving, driving without due care and attention, causing bodily harm and damage to property, and driving without a valid license.
You have to wonder what the circumstances must have been that they ended up with this guy behind the wheel.
The collision happened around 11 a.m. in Makun on Monday, around 30 miles from Lagos. The Federal Road Safety Corps said the Lexus was suspected to be traveling in excess of the speed limit and lost control while overtaking. Footage on social media showed Joshua in pain and dazed as he was helped out of the wrecked vehicle. A spokesperson for Joshua later confirmed that his friends had died in the accident. It is with the deepest and most profound sadness that we confirm, following a road traffic accident in Lagos, Nigeria, the death of Sinagami and Kevin Latif Ayodele. Both were close friends and integral members of Anthony's team. Joshua, who has Nigerian heritage, was spending time in the country following his recent fight against Jake Paul in Miami. After a 15-month absence from the sport, Joshua had marked his return with a 6th-round knockout over the YouTube star at the Kaseya Center on December 19th. No one would have thought that night that this would happen afterwards.
So you have to question what the circumstances must have been that they ended up with this guy behind the wheel, and this was the end result. Did this guy represent some sort of chauffeuring agency out there in Nigeria?
As Anthony would represent a very high-profile client, this is literally one of the richest, most recognizable athletes in the world, that it shouldn't just be any Joe Blow from around the way driving him around. How did they meet this guy? Who hired him?
There is a question of infrastructure, because if it were Anthony on holiday in New York, you know they would have put him in contact with a reputable driving agency that ain't gonna dick around on the road. They said the vehicle was going well above the speed limit when it tried to overtake. Overtake what? Another vehicle? Is that how the Nigerians put it when you cut someone off?
Is that what caused the accident? That the driver was attempting to cut somebody off, didn't see that parked garbage truck resting on the shoulder, then slammed into it. Perhaps he was just going so fast, the vehicle careened and he could not regain control in time. I heard some mention of a blown-out tire.
Were road conditions a factor? Did they cause one of the tires to blow out Is that how he lost control?
Even if it's a part of it, it likely won't exonerate him of getting behind the wheel without a license. And not only that, Anthony Joshua's uncle says that bystanders stole Anthony's phone when he was laying injured inside the car, and he also blasts the Nigerian government. When they are supposed to help, you see them bringing out their phones and to make videos and to even steal from the victims. That is not right. We even heard that Anthony Joshua's phone was stolen during the accident. Such attitudes must be discouraged. The police and other emergency responders should get to the scene of an accident on time and cordon off the place. I want to condemn the lackadaisical attitude of our government towards anything emergency. To see Joshua crossing the median after the accident when he was supposed to be on a stretcher was distressing.
I noticed it almost immediately when the images first came out that Anthony was not transported to the local hospital in an ambulance. He was transported via a police cruiser. When you think about it, the only reason they were able to transport him that way is because he didn't need emergency medical attention. But that's just the luck of the draw. What if his injuries would have been more severe?
Would they have still been able to move him that way? It's a question of infrastructure when you're talking about response times for emergency professionals. At the risk of sounding cavalier, Nigeria is not a first world country to where you can expect the response times for emergency professionals to be akin to what you see in the United Kingdom or what you see in the United States.
It's not gonna be.
It speaks to deeper issues within the region for anyone who might be traveling there. Roadside safety, response times for emergency medical professionals. You were being chauffeured by a guy who doesn't even have a license to be behind the wheel. Who hired him? What were the circumstances of that? Because he causes an accident and the locals rob you of your phone while you're coming to. I wonder if Anthony will visit the region again.
Well, he's got family there.
Yeah, and enough money to fly them out. Enough money to bring that family to him. So I wonder if Anthony will ever revisit the region beyond this traumatic and tragic accident. He has since flown back to the United Kingdom, and they have since held a service for both of his fallen compatriots. We saw the images of that not but a day or so ago. He's gonna need a lot of time to himself.
Yeah, you don't go through something like that and then in 1 or 2 weeks you're back to normal.
We may be addressing this situation here on this boxing channel because he is a boxer after all, but I think that boxing is the last thing on Anthony's mind right now. Some speculate that the two-time unified heavyweight champion will likely not box again beyond this because his two buddies weren't just guys that he knew, they were part of his training team.
Not easily replaced.
Anthony only narrowly escaped death because the driver instructed him to sit in the back seat so he can get a better view of his mirrors.
You know, because he's such a big guy, takes up so much space, he ends up swapping seats with one of his buddies, and we see what happened. How do you think that's resting on his mind?
He's gonna need some time away, serious time away. Elsewhere in the men's heavyweight division, ahead of this weekend's fight, Moses Itauma says Jermaine Franklin is good at things that I still need to prove. Moses believes Jermaine Franklin will pose him the type of questions he hasn't yet been forced to answer when they fight at Manchester's Co-op Live Arena on January 24th. On paper, Franklin promises to provide Itauma with the STEMIS test of yet, but the robust American is being written off by many as a measuring stick for the 21-year-old's progress rather than a genuine threat to his unbeaten record.
Did they call him a robust American?
Itauma, 13-0 with 11 KOs, doesn't subscribe to that theory. I actually think it's a test of opposition, Itauma said during a recent roundtable interview. So far, the ring's number 7 ranked heavyweight has breezed through a cast of fringe contenders and faded names, but Franklin will arrive on British shores after a career-best win over the previously unbeaten Ivan Ditchko, and still in his prime at 32.
Yeah, except that I saw the Ivan Ditchko fight, and frankly, I think Jermaine was very lucky to get the decision in that one. He didn't look good in that fight. He actually looked better losing to Anthony and losing to Dillian than he did beating, quote-unquote beating, Ivan Ditchko.
The Michigan native has only ever been beaten by two-time unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua and a peak Dillian White. neither man came close to stopping him inside the distance. Itauma is widely regarded as the future of the heavyweight division, but hasn't been extended beyond the second round since coasting through 6 with Argentina's Kevin Espandola in July of 2023. He understands it is crucial that he meets some resistance on his road to a title shot and is prepared for the determined Franklin to offer plenty more pushback than recent opposition. I actually think it might be my toughest fight, he said. The reason why I say that is because he does very well. There's still question marks about me, whereas with White, there's a lot of things to exploit in his game. Dempsey McKean, to be honest, although he went 12 rounds with Hrgovic, I personally didn't think he was that great, but I actually do feel like Franklin is a solid fighter, so I'm ready for him.
You know that there are actually 2 unbeaten Queensberry heavyweights in action this month. There's unbeaten Moses Itauma, but there is also unbeaten Agit Kabayel and what is his big homecoming fight.
And that is happening this weekend in Germany, brought to us via DAZN.
Serving as a lead-in to the Matthias versus Dalton Smith fight in this part of the world later on that day, assuming you plan on buying it.
Because it is a pay-per-view.
And so this has all the makings of a particularly busy weekend in the sport of boxing.
Back over to Moses.
Will Moses make it through Jermaine? Will he make it through this acid test? Moses has been able to easily cut through his competition like a knife.
He's never been 12 rounds, he's never been 10 rounds, because he's never had to. He gets rid of these guys so fast, it's almost a gift and a curse. It's a gift in the sense you have that which to add to your highlight reel of knockouts, but it's a curse because you're not actually getting to amass much experience when you get out there, getting rid of these guys so quickly. Will Jermaine be able to last longer than the other guys did? If you're Jermaine Franklin, your best bet is taking this guy into deep waters and drowning him, where his cardio might begin to fade, might begin to fail, because he's never really had to use it.
He can't match his power. Jermaine Franklin is a solid fighter, durable, and he's got some hand speed within close quarters, but he doesn't have the explosiveness and the suddenness of a Moses Itauma, that one-hitter quitter power. That's what Jermaine doesn't have.
He's not the biggest puncher, but perhaps if he can drag this on to where Moses starts to get tired, he won't need to be. Exhaustion.
That'll do it.
An interesting acid test for Moses later on this month.